Right, in this tutorial we're going to have a look at shadows and how they're affected by the shape of the item that's casting the shadow and also the direction that the light's coming from. Okay, now the first one we're going to look at is a simple cube, looked at slightly from above. Now the light coming from here is going to hit this front side, which we obviously can't see. It's going to be slightly darker on this side here, and it's going to be quite dark here. Then you'll get a shadow, something like that, that generally follows the line of the cube. Now always remember with shadows, they're always darker immediately next to the item that's casting the shadow, and they lighten off as they get towards the far edge of the shadow because there's more ambient light coming from around the side and here and there to weaken the shadow a little bit here. Now I'll do that one again, but let's assume that the light source is coming from this direction, from, if you like, from behind this corner. This is still going to be quite light. That's going to be quite dark because all the light is on the far side of this block, and this is going to be quite dark as well. Let's do it that way so we can distinguish the two. Okay, now in this case you can see the shadow is a completely different shape to that one because the light is coming from behind the block and picking up these four corners. So all you need to be aware of is the shape of the item that's casting the shadow and the direction of the light, and it also is affected as to how high or low the light source is. So the lower the light source, the longer the shadow, and that's why you get long shadows of a morning and an evening, because the sun is much lower in the sky. Okay, let's move on to the old tin can. Right, now before we draw the cast shadow on the can itself, have a look at this. We've got the inside of the can has a shadow here because it's shadowed from the light here, but this side of the inside of the can is lit up because the light is catching it just at the top here. On this side of the can, on the far side, as you'd expect, we've got a shadow, but notice how, unlike this, which is a very hard, sharp definition between light and shade, here we've got a faded definition because it defines the roundness of the can. And one interesting thing, notice that the darkest part of the can here is not, as you might think, right at the edge of the can here. That's got a slightly lighter part simply because there'll be other bits of light coming round the back of the can and lighting that side of the can up and just catching the light there, what's called reflected light. Now let's have a look at the sort of shadow it'll cast. Well, it's very similar to this one, except it's going to have a rounded top. Now you can see I've made the shadow of the can, the cast shadow, a lot longer than the can is actually tall, and that would represent a low light source like this, again as if the sun is very low in the sky. And again, notice how the shadow lightens off towards its edge as opposed to the much darker shadow immediately behind the can. Right, let's look at one more now. Right, now let's have a look at the circle, or to be more accurate, the sphere or the ball. And the sphere or the ball could just as easily be an apple or an orange or something similar. Now in this case, we want to try and create with the shadow the effect of a three-dimensional object. So here's how we do it. We start off by putting our shadow in a circle, because that first of all gives the impression that the thing is round. Again, we're going to have light source from this direction, so this area here is going to be quite light. And there's a much more subtle effect you have to achieve with a ball or sphere or an apple. And this is the way I do it to start with, which is fine up to a point, but I also want it to be round that way. So I'm going to make it round like that. You can see that I'm imagining in effect I'm drawing on an apple or a ball at the moment. You notice the way these strokes are getting rounder and rounder, but they're all drawn in towards the centre. I'm going to do those a little bit darker because this is going to be the real deep shadow part at the base. Okay, we've got this shaded sphere now, and it looks reasonably round. You can see I've lightened off this area here where the light source is. What I'm going to do is introduce a little piece of putty eraser, and that's going to just take out a little highlighter. You can see I'm just dabbing on there just to create that highlight, that high spot. Now incidentally, the smaller and sharper the spot that you make, the shinier the object appears, like a billiard ball. If it's a bigger, duller spot, high spot, then it's going to represent a duller outer surface, like the skin of an apple or an orange. Now let's just quickly do the shadow for this, and it's really just an elongated oval, but there's an important difference with the others in that the shadow extends for the sphere slightly beyond the end of the ball, the apple, whatever you want to call it, because the light source falling on it is going to, this part here is going to cast a little bit of a shadow. Okay, so don't just start it at the end here. And you can see that the shadow area here and the base of the sphere is almost run into one, and that gives a unity to the shadow. It anchors the ball to the shadow and the shadow to the ball. Okay, there we are. Some basic shadows to get you going. Again, not difficult once you know what to do.